Consortium's webinar entitled Situational Awareness. And let's go ahead and begin. So I wanted to just take a moment to talk about what you'll learn over the next hour. What steps did HSEMA take to address their requirements and increase their emergency management readiness? We'll talk about what results they've had since implementing the solution. What is intelligent visualization and how does it work? How can it help you collaborate with others? And how can you improve your situational awareness and make more informed decisions? We have two speakers today. We have Josh Jack, Chief Information Officer and Statewide Interoperability Coordinator at DC HSEMA, and Jason Jaworski, who's the Federal Solutions Manager at ActiveView. And we're going to go ahead and get started with Josh. Josh, I'm going to go ahead and give you the mic.
Sure. Thanks, Laura. I'm glad to see that you can't say visualization either. But before I start, I just sort of want to frame this presentation, just the whole situational awareness kind of angle. So obviously we have many tools here at DC Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency to create that is one that we will be focusing on today. Okay. So a little bit about DC HSEMA. I'll sort of go through these slides. I won't read everything, but I do want to read the mission. So the mission of the DC Homeland Security and the Emergency Management Agency is to support, coordinate Homeland Security and emergency management efforts to ensure that the District of Columbia, all has its emergency operations, are prepared to protect against, plan for, respond to, and recover from natural and man-made hazards. And obviously our vision is to just keep the district safe and secure. So some of the services that are core services that HSEMA focuses on is the coordinates and planning and preparedness efforts to facilitate an integrated environment during to ensure good decision making and response. So that's very important, that integrated environment that we have here at HSEMA. So this environment will achieve situational awareness and, where possible, eliminate and minimize conflicting information received from numerous sources. So this is always a challenge, the whole conflicting of information. We're always getting lots and lots of information, and you have to go through and vet each one of those so you're ensuring that you're giving the decision makers the proper information and as fast as you can. And of course, the achieving the situational awareness, which is really what this is all about. So HSEMA also sponsors in training of our first local first responders designed to cover mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Next slide, please. So within HSEMA, we have our operations, and the operations is the heart and soul of HSEMA. And the HSEMA's Operations Division manages the Emergency Operations Center 24 hours a day, 7 days of a week. We are the only 24/7 center EOC in the National Capital Region, and in our EOC we have what we call the JHOC, the Joint All Hazards Operations Center, and the JHOC is really the 24/7 portion of our EOC. Obviously, the EOC is activated. It's full when we're activated during an incident, natural or man-made. So the JHOC manages the day-to-day internal, back one. Thank you. The day-to-day internal operational functions of HSEMA and access the state EOC for the District of Columbia, integrating, both, local, regional, federal information and communications. And in there, I didn't put there, but also private. We have our utilities and quasi-public entities. And so that is important. So even though, so we're activated 24/7. It's just a smaller unit than our full EOC. So the EOC is the district's main operations center. There are many operations centers, in the district, but the EOC is the main operational command and control center during emergencies, disasters, and special events. In the district, but also as well as the National Capital Region. So like I said, we are the only 24/7 always activated center, and besides those planned events, when things happen, no one else is activated. So usually, we're looked upon for that command and control. Next slide, please. So the JHOC serves as the central communication point during local and regional emergencies, as we said. So they're responsible for 24-hour EOC capabilities, coordinating all district preparedness, response, mitigation, and recovery efforts, and facilitating the development of an integrated collaborative environment. Again, integrated collaborative is very important during events and incidents. Providing actionable information to senior officials for key decision-making efforts and responses. I mean, that is one of our key functions, is to provide that information to those key officials. And then, of course, providing situational awareness to local, federal, and regional partners. Next slide. So what is situational awareness? Situational awareness means many things to many people, to many different disciplines. For us, situational awareness is really real-time information. So, voice and radio will always rule as far as real-time information, but you have weather information, you have CCTV, traffic cameras, you have TAD data, you have TV, great source, obviously, of real-time information. WebUC, you have sensors, it could be road sensors or hazmat sensors. So being able to understand and consume this information so that the necessary actions can take place, to us, is situational awareness. And then going back to kind of what this presentation is about, is our visualization and display capabilities are a means of acquiring situational awareness. Really, our visualization system kind of pulls it all together, creates that integrated and collaborative environment that we strive for in our EOC. Next slide. So Jason, why don't you say hello and why don't you go through this slide, and I'll sort of pipe in when I need to.
Sure. So I'm Jason Jaworski with Active Corporation. We do integrate and support Josh's visual display system at the HSEMA facility, the UCC. So the slide in front of you depicts a couple different things, and I'll go through them. On the top, we show a representation of a video wall. And then down the middle, we show sources of content that can be displayed on those on various devices. And then we also show an iPad or any sort of tablet, really, it could be, and then any sort of mobile cellular device, which are now, what we're really showing here is the whole ecosystem for displaying visual information, which is what we feel is a relative important piece to gaining situational awareness. And the command center, the infrastructure, the physical piece of that is definitely a piece of the gaining situational awareness. But more and more, it's pushing that content that's in the command center to the field, and the field being able to push that information directly back to the command center. And once again, in a visual manner. That's what we're focusing on here. Taking pictures from say a mobile device and having it directly go to the video wall or to an LCD or to a projector or to a group of displays or directly to a PC are all capabilities that increase and enhance your capabilities. And going across that middle slide is IP video. And IP video can be various things. It can be an IP camera that's along a roadway, so it could be a traffic camera, or it could be a security camera for surveillance of a compound or monitoring a situation. So it could be any of those feeds coming across the network. Cable and satellite TV. Once again, requirements for displaying information. That information can be displayed on the video wall to an edge device, such as a PDA or a tablet. It's vice versa. It can go in either direction using an enterprise-based visual situational awareness system, which is really kind of one of the key things that we're looking at here, is getting away from the strict audio-visual method that maybe a lot of people are traditionally used to, and introducing methods more associated with an enterprise IT-based infrastructure where you're using servers and standard operating systems that are part of the enterprise, not a dedicated audio-visual LAN that are standalone, that are taking video inputs. You're talking about using software to get the content from PCs and from the IP video and from third-party systems, which is a pretty integral piece of what we're going to talk about today. And to the right of the slide, you see a block designated as third-party systems. That could be anything. And there's another slide that we'll talk a little bit more in depth as what they could be. The third-party systems have APIs and SDKs, or most do today in our community, that all help with tools to support the situational awareness. The interoperability between the display systems and those various third-party systems are what we're really talking about to build an intelligent visualization system. And that intelligence doesn't necessarily always reside at the display piece or display system. The intelligence resides amongst the environment, amongst the enterprise, amongst the systems. It's never focused on one piece. But when all those third-party software, including the display systems, talk together on the network to determine what is relevant to display based on conditions and triggers that are met versus having the users and operators guess, the display system becomes more intelligent. The end user always has the ability to decide and overrule the system, there's no doubt. But having that ability to integrate those components gets us closer to where we want to be. So the sources, the computer sources, those are sitting on the network. Those are running your applications. Those are where you're doing your in-depth analysis. The display system is just a very quick method to gain situational awareness from all the different PCs, from all the different sources that you have that may be throughout a larger space, that may be in multiple rooms, that may be in multiple geographic locations. So you're not constrained to a physical length of a cable or a signal that has to get from point to point. You're dependent on your network. So therefore, you can source web pages directly. You don't have to open up a web page on a PC and then display that PC as a video feed up on your displays, whether it be a video wall or an LCD or a plasma or a projector, or even your desktop PC. And that really has to be looked at here is any PC, any display, any edge device can be pushed or pulled to in some capacity or another and can be used to manage the display system to become more intelligent, more capable, more user-definable, quickly changed, very flexible in what it displays. There doesn't necessarily have to be forethought defined as to what you're going to look at based on scenarios that were conceived months before the actual event may have happened. And once again, going back to the slide where it shows files, most systems that are out there and most EOCs that you see are typically dependent on displaying an entire desktop as a video signal to a display or to a group of displays. Where in an enterprise type solution, you can source a file directly to a display through your typical file management system, through your Windows Explorer, through My Computer. You can literally drag and drop a file onto your display management console, which will then display on the displays throughout your EOC, your command center, your edge devices such as your cellular devices and tablets and PDAs that are out connecting through a secure VPN. So all that together brings together the visual situational awareness, is the ability to take content that resides in the enterprise, not on a dedicated LAN, WAN that supports audio-visual, but in the enterprise and display it anywhere, as you need it in a very flexible way, in a very dynamic way. That's what visual situational awareness is. So I'm ready for the next slide.
Sure.
Josh, I'll kick this back to you.
Sure. So what was the problem? So the problem was, still is, and always will be, the need for better situational awareness. It's not a problem that will ever really be resolved because we always do a better job at it. I see here that we kind of note pre-9/11 and post-9/11. I think that brings up, the reason for that is two things, right? I think 9/11 really highlighted our deficiencies, and then also after 9/11 came lots of money. So I think that's why we use that as a kind of a benchmark. So previously, and we're doing a lot better at it now, so disjointed view of visual information on a desktop operator level. So all this information that we have and had was not new. We've always had those data sources, but they were not being shared in that collaborative, integrated environment in the EOC. So now we do that a lot better. There's always an ongoing need for faster ways to display the information. How do I get that? In the past, I could just show a TV channel, on a TV. I could have maybe 20 TVs, but a single channel each one. Now, really, my video walls, and I have 3 of them, by the way. You saw that the previous slide. Well, in my EOC, I have 3 huge video walls and 2 huge projector walls, and I can, mix and match the information on there, any way I want. So there's also an ongoing need to enhance the decision-making process, enhance it, make it faster, give them more information to make those decisions. And this last one is really key to me, being the CIO and the SWIC, the Interoperability Coordinator for the district, an open standard IT-based solution. And that's when we're talking about integrating with those third-party solutions. Having an API or SDK is really key to the system. I don't think it was really in the minds of the people who purchased it back. Jason, what, 10 years have we had the system now? Probably wasn't.
Going on 11 years actually.
11 years. I'm sure they weren't thinking about it, but I'm glad they did, because it is key to our growth and the use of the system now. Next slide. So what did we need? Kind of talked about all these things. We need a visualization platform, an environment to improve the EOC's emergency response. And we did this by centralizing and consolidating the views, all those data sources, right? We improved EOC collaboration because everyone now is kind of seeing all those pieces of information that maybe on their desktop they only could see 1 or 2 things. Rapid assimilation and distribution of visual content, such as all those sources that we spoke of, maps, video, documents, those desktop applications like WebEOC and CAD, and then to assist in obtaining situational awareness and make more informed decisions. Yeah. Next slide. So what was the solution? We did select a visual solution that could consume and then display those sources in any configuration that we wanted. It had to be flexible and scalable. Over the years, 11 years I guess, we've grown, we've added different sources. The system itself has just physically grown to many more endpoints and consumable sources. So it had to be interoperable with other systems. So those third-party software applications, such as my CCTV applications or my GIS, all these things had to be able to be integrated into the system to more effectively and efficiently show that information. It had to be secure, and it had to be an enterprise IT-based system. Next slide. So Jason, again, why don't you talk to this slide, and I will pipe in when necessary.
Sure. Thanks, Josh. So we'll talk about interoperability here, and this is a very generic slide. It's meant to just show a very open view of what interoperability could be, should be, may need to be for different organizations. Some of these things Josh may or may not use, and he can chime in as to which ones he does. But these are typical things that we see, at least at ActiveView, that we integrate with on a regular basis to become a more interoperable from different level of command centers, emergency operations centers, things of that nature. So your intrusion detection systems, your common operation picture applications, your PSIMs, your VMSs, your CBRNE, which are, for those, I'm sure everybody knows, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, explosive type sensor systems that are out there. They all detect things and see things, and those platforms should have APIs and SDKs that allow an enterprise display system to listen and communicate across the enterprise LAN so that the automated display of information can happen. So you see there's a visualization system server that has the responding API SDK that has either calls that can be made across the network, or that can even have its own logic that can make determinations based on multiple inputs that it's receiving as to what to display.
Hey Jason, I mean, just for those people who maybe need to visualize this in their heads, let me give you an example. So for example, let's use a PSIM. We do have our PSIM connected to ActiveView through this integration, the SDK. So for example, let's say a sensor goes off and the PSIM receives that information. So it could be a roadway sensor, or it could be like ShotSpotter. And then the intelligence in that system can say, show me the 4 closest cameras. And then the PSIM will communicate with ActiveView, our visualization software platform, and say, hey, these are the 4 closest cameras. Please pull them up and show them to the operator at this time. So that's just one way that the integration and interoperability works. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, and that example is a great example. Thanks, Josh. And that example pretty much permeates through the other type of sensors. Is based on conditions that are met within those subsystems, the display system can then place content on various sets of displays. In this case, I show a PDA, a video wall, some LCDs, and a PC. All those sources can have content automatically placed on them based on conditions that are met on the other subsystems through interoperability of APIs and SDKs on the enterprise network. But once again, I'm stressing the enterprise network here. All these things have to reside on the same network in order for this to work seamlessly. And going back to Josh's previous slide, being flexible and scalable, having the ability to grow the system. And even though the PSIM or the COP or the VMS may make a decision to tell the display system to place something on a video wall or projector or what have you, the display system itself can always go in and move and rearrange that content. And you can, and for those who are participating on the web, can see I place different sources on the displays as boxes with dashed lines, and you can see those sources span the physical boundaries of the displays. There's no boundary as to where you're putting that content or what shape that content has to be on any of those devices. So there's many different arrangements that you should be able to quickly change if need be. There's always a need for layouts. There's always a need to have a defined layout to start from. There's no doubt about that. But when the bosses come in and say, hey, can you make that bigger? Can you move that? I need to see that bigger. Can you place that on all 3 video walls so we can all see it? Quickly and dynamically be able to change the environment to be able to enhance your situational awareness is critical. And using the enterprise to do that is definitely taking advantage of the interoperability in the enterprise to do that. And doing it securely. So all the communications between the subsystems and within the display system need to have some sort of encryption. If possible, meet FIPS encryption, which should be met, which is kind of standard these days. And I think that really talks to the interoperability of the systems in the enterprise environment.
Thanks.
Next slide, unless you have something else, Josh.
That's good. So what are the results that we've seen? Improved situational awareness. Yeah, that is true. Again, I'll just say, one tool in the toolbox. Decisions are made faster. Yes, this is true. More informed decisions, correct, and increased flexibility. Definitely. Okay. Next slide. So I think at this point, kind of talking about HSEMA's environment, that has concluded, and I think Jason now will take over. Is this correct, Jason?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Josh. So I'm just going to touch on a few different things here that are just, in general, what we feel are needs of the community from gaining visual situational awareness, gaining that intelligent visualization, and leveraging the enterprise in general. We're not speaking of HSEMA directly here. So the next slide talks about intelligent visualization. Kind of what is that? The ability of a visualization solution to display information based on events that occur within other software applications. So we give a couple of very generic situations that may happen that could then have the display system react and respond accordingly to place content across displays within the environment. So we show a car sitting parked in a parking lot for 15 minutes. Now, typically, this is going to be your video analytics system that somehow you set thresholds that if a red car sits in a perimeter defined for longer than a certain period of time, you want to bring up that camera feed associated with that. If you have a first responder check-in system that hasn't received a check-in, you can bring up your GIS locator map for your assets. If phone lines are down, if you receive no tone on your PBX going out or no signal, you're unable to dial, that you bring up your GIS map and check on a status of maybe some assets that are out there. So those are just some common things that may be used. These are just hypothetical situations, nothing relatively defined within HSEMA itself. All right, next slide, please. So here we're just going to talk about intelligent visualization, what it is, what it comprises of, and as you can see, we're bringing up different content here as we go through the slide, and it's showing content moving around, which is kind of what I want to get across here is the enterprise visualization. Like I said, and I just keep restating this because we do feel this is really critical in gaining the ultimate situational awareness or improving the situational awareness, is leveraging that. And that goes from the control room to the desktop to the field, and be able to move that information freely between all of those platforms and all those areas. Next slide, please. So summary, what do we feel is necessary in obtaining situation awareness, and some of the things that you as a group should consider as you're looking at expanding or improving your command centers, your EOCs, and things of that nature, is evaluating enterprise-based technology from an IT standpoint. Really get involved with that. Really, take into consideration the options that you have out there and what's capable of these days by putting a solution directly onto your network that's managed just like all your other enterprise systems. Technology has come a long way. And if we can manage our display systems in the same way that an email server gets managed and patched, then we're really getting ahead to where we need to be. We don't need a dedicated audio-visual person to support the display system. It becomes an IT-based system. Evaluate different display technologies. Display technologies in general are getting improving and coming out to the market faster and faster, from the DLP cubes and the seamless LCD panels, or the near seamless LCD panels, the near seamless DLP cubes, and the LEDs and versus plasmas, and all the different technologies you have out there to display content, to include your PDAs and your Android devices and your Apple devices and your tablets that are out there today. Those are all part of your display technologies, and they all should be considered as you move forward in developing improved technologies for your command center. Integrating with third-party platforms. So here, what we talked about earlier, all the different systems that you manage or use should at some point be able to talk together to help you improve and automate your decision-making process. Situational awareness is never perfect, but should be as flexible as possible to adjust to unknown requirements. I've managed command centers at the DoD level, and I've had many situations pop up that required things to change very rapidly. And the ability for me to quickly place content so that the senior leadership could see it based on what they wanted to see, not what I thought they wanted to see at a given moment, not what I defined as a layout in a hardwired, defined, proprietary control system, allows me a lot more flexibility than what I could have had, and allows me to make better decisions and keep my leadership informed. So gaining that situational awareness and having it flexible for different inputs, for response, for reconfiguration on the fly, very dynamically, is ultimately what's going to gain you that situational awareness. And user configurable. You don't want to have a system that's dependent on source code development and compiling of code and uploading to devices. You want something that can be user-defined at the desktop level from anywhere in the enterprise, not having to be managed from a specific location. Be able to manage from a handheld device, be able to manage from your home on a laptop through a VPN, through a secure connection. Those are things that make your system more manageable and more user-friendly and user-configurable. So that's all I have. I really appreciate everyone's time in spending here, and I look forward. We're going to move on to the question and answer period. So if anyone has any questions, I look forward to answering them.
Thanks, Jason. And here's on the screen, if you're on the GoToWebinar platform, is the contact information for Josh and Jason. And for Josh, it's joshua.jack@dc.gov. And for Jason, it's jason.jaworski, which is JAWORSKI@activeview.com. I like to read that out loud for the people who are just listening online. And now we're going to take a moment to open this up for Q&A. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, there's two ways to participate in Q&A. You can hit the hand icon on your window panel, and it will tell me that you want to be unmuted, and you can talk to the speakers. Or you can go ahead and type a question in. There's been a couple people who've been typing during the webinar. I do think a couple of the questions have been answered. One of them was, how did your situational awareness procedures lead you to this system, Josh? Was there a shortfall or gap in information sharing in the region? I think you addressed that in your what was the problem slide, but maybe you want to elaborate on that, or at least maybe talk about how the technology has helped you overcome or better prepare for a particular disaster or other significant event.
Read the question again to me.
How did your situational awareness procedures lead you to this system? And was there a shortfall or gap in information sharing in the region?
No, I don't think that had, the whole regional aspect. It didn't really have anything to do with the selection of the system. The regional collaboration has always been very good through many different systems. So no.
Okay, and I think you mentioned that you talked to that in one of your slides of what was the problem, just the ongoing need for faster and more accurate information. But was there any particular time where you may have used this technology or the information to overcome or prepare for a particular event that happened in the region?
Sure. So we are 24/7. We use the system 24/7. It is just again, we've been using it for 11 years, so it is just part of what we do day in, day out. But yes, definitely. Obviously, the best examples are those special events where you have time to prepare to set up the environment specifically for that event. And using Jason's last two bullets of his last slide there, the flexibility of the system to do whatever I want is really key. I mean, regardless of what the end user wants to see, we are able to create that environment on the system. I think, where the system really excels are during those non-planned events. And you are required to just basically just create the environment for that event and rapidly do that as quickly as you can. And the system really never ceases to amaze me how fast I can create that environment. And we're talking minutes to pull up all the GIS data for that location or the cameras, pull up our web UC, just creating that very, very full and robust environment is great.
Okay. Thanks, Josh. There's a question, Jason, for you on what if it's a small town, a population of 9,000 or less, and there's little or no money in the budget to pay for the system? Do you have any recommendations of how people can improve their situational awareness or COP?
Well, obviously every user has their own set of requirements, and they have to live within the budget they have. And how do you? I mean, it's a case-by-case scenario as how to best improve anyone's given situation. So it's hard to generalize how to improve any small town situation without knowing what that budget might be and what systems they may already have or what they don't have to try to improve upon that.
Okay, maybe that person can also contact you directly to tell them a little bit more about the background of his particular region. But
can I hop in there? That person should also call me on that too, or send me an email. Because I want to hear more about when they say, remember, situational awareness, this is just one tool in the toolkit. There may be lots of ways for no cost or very cheaply to achieve better situational awareness.
Agreed. That's a great point, Josh.
Thanks, and definitely take Josh up on that because he's a great resource on this. Same person asked, what are your capabilities for maintaining situational awareness if internet becomes inaccessible? And what GIS platform are you using?
Sure. We use both Esri and Google Earth. We have our own enterprise DC Google, and of course Esri is just a standard. So the internet question, that's an excellent question because we deal with that all the time. Actually, it's funny, really our first line of defense for situational awareness is pretty old school. We have the WAWAS-NAWAS circuit. There's one in about 164 centers around the region, even more than the region, probably more like going all the way up to like Baltimore, Mount Weather, and that is just like the backbone. We run it, we manage it for the region, for the Washington area region, out of our center here. And for example, if there's a weather event coming, we can hop on it and say, ring the circuit and say, National Weather Service, please come over the line and brief the circuit on current weather conditions. So there's many of those kind of non-internet based systems that we have. Again, many tools in the toolbox. You got to have redundancy.
Can I comment also on that, Josh? Sorry.
Sure.
Regarding ActiveView's requirement for internet access, the ActiveView solution in general, or an enterprise-based solution, isn't necessarily dependent on the internet. It's dependent on the local area network. So just as if the internet was to go down, there would be no email coming from the outside. There would be no outside sources available to display using the enterprise-based system. But as soon as that circuit came back up and the internet was restored, the information from the outside, just as email would come in, would also be available to the display system.
Yeah. No, great question though. Get asked that all the time.
Okay. Well, we didn't have any requests for some audio questions, and those were all the written questions that we had. So Josh and Jason, I wanted to thank you for the time and effort you put in today's presentation for the webinar. I know you're both very busy, and we really appreciate your time. And I also want to thank the attendees for dialing in today. The All Hazards Consortium has a Facebook and Twitter account, so if anyone wants to come visit us, this is just a screenshot showing our homepage. And I also wanted to give you our URL, which is www.ahcusa.org to come visit us. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send an email to info@ahcusa.org. And as a reminder, we will be sending not only the slides, but we do download the audio with the slides to the All Hazards Consortium YouTube channel. It takes us a few days, but what I'll do is email everyone who had signed on today for the webinar. If you're on audio, please just shoot an email out because I can only tell if you've logged on to the platform. But I will send that information out. It has Jason and Josh's contact information if you have any additional questions. Hope you found today's webinar useful, and this hereby ends the webinar. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.